Alrighty, so this is going to be the start of my Twilight of the Republic spoiler review. This is going to be a pretty long one because this not only includes the first week of official previews, which just started in September, but also will include everything that was kind of teased out before that, which includes the starter set, unique cards, as well as a few other things that kind of trickled in. So it's about over 40 cards or so. So it might be a little long, but we'll get through it. This is going to be similar to my reviews for the second set, Shadows of the Galaxy. So the focus here is for Constructed, it's for Premiere. Cards that I think are more designed for Draft. I'm not going to spend very much time on them. No, I might miss on a few of those and pass over them a little too quickly, but for the most part, I think I have a pretty good track record identifying the ones that have been mostly designed for Draft and not so much for Constructed. Other than that, there are two new mechanics in this set, both of which I'll kind of give an overview on once I get to the first card that features those mechanics. And remember that the threshold now for cards to be good enough in Constructed is going to be a bit higher than it was before. We are now up to 3 sets. The card pool is growing, so the barrier to entry increases, right? So more cards that we may have been like, oh, that's playable with 1 set or with 2 sets might not be anymore. Now, I don't really give exact grades to cards. I talk about them and what I see in them and what I think they could fit in when it comes to what we currently understand about the game and how it's working in the current meta, but also try to give a little bit of foresight and hey, these are things that might end up being better in the future, especially with more support. We have to assume that cards in this set, especially the ones with the new mechanics, are going to be supported in some way, and we're only 40 cards in out of about 250, right? So there's way more to come. All right, before we go, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't, check out the Patreon if you haven't, and let's get to it. We're going to talk about the starter leaders. The first one's Ahsoka Tano. She has Coordinate, which is a new mechanic. So what Coordinate says is that if you control 3 or more units, it's kind of on, right? So kind of difficult, at least in the way we currently understand the game. Having 3 units out, not very easy, but we have to assume it's not going to be as hard. This set does have tokens in it, so token generation usually means being able to go wide more easily. So we have to think Coordinate is probably going to be a little easier to trigger here than it would have in the first set. So the action is, if you have Coordinate, right, attack with a unit, it gets +1/+0 for this attack. So you can't do this action unless you have 3 units. She flips as a 5-cost leader, is a 3/6 with Force Jedi Republic. Force, we know, is a solid trait. Jedi looks like it's going to be featured in this set as well. Republic as also, but she's a 3/6 and she has Coordinate. This unit gets +2/+0. So if she is your 3rd unit when she flips, she's actually a 5/6. Now 5 is really chunky for a 5-cost leader. 6 health, it's solid enough certainly to see play in terms of the stats. Overall, I'm actually not that impressed with this leader in general. I think even though I expect Coordinate to be a little more easy to trigger than that kind of effect would be in set 1, it's still pretty situational. And her entire leader side is really, really dependent on having it, right? You can't even use her ability without having 3 units out, which means for the first couple turns, it's definitely a dead ability. And past that, it can be kind of shut down if your opponent wants it to. Same with the leader, right? A 3/6 for 5 is boring, and especially when there's no ability attached to it. And the ability here is only going to be good if she's your 3rd unit. Now, I do think in many situations she might be able to be a 5/6 just because she counts herself as a unit. So you only need 2 others. But this looks, at least initially, a little not so impressive to me so far. And the other star leader, the villain one, is General Grievous. So he has an action, give a droid unit sentinel for this phase. So it's a little slow, right? Because you have to either play or have the droid on the battlefield first and then use the action, right? Unlike Chewbacca, for instance, who like you play the unit and give it Sentinel at the same time. But droids in this set, we're going to see, they are, the token droid is just a 1/1. They seem to be attached to many units. So it looks like it's not going to be too hard to just like create chump blockers, essentially, turning these 1/1s into Sentinels, making opponents waste a lot of time having to get through an army of 1/1s that they like have to waste tons of damage on. So the ability, although a little slow, has a lot of potential to just kind of annoy your opponent. It flips as a 6 cost. He is a Separatist official. He's a 4/8. And he has an on attack. You may give a droid unit +1/+0 and Sentinel for this phase. So Separatist official, I mean official we know that at least interacts with like Emperor's Royal Guard. Separatist looks like it's going to have some things interact with it as well. On attack, it does the same ability, but I mean, mostly we're looking at the stats here. 4/8 is quite hefty. I mean, Cad Bane is a 2/8, Raid 2 is 6. In general, the issue is 6, right? I think 6 cost leaders so far have not actually been particularly competitive. And we're going to have to see if that changes. I think mostly the issue is that like past 4 and 5 cost, 6 doesn't like make the leader better enough to like warrant a whole turn. Most of the leaders that cost 6 so far, I think in many ways aren't even statted better than a lot of 5 cost leaders. Their abilities aren't always like massive, right? Once you go past that, like Vader, Palpatine, Jabba, Chewbacca, like although not all of those leaders are particularly competitive, they do feature some like much more dramatic abilities than most 6 cost leaders. And General Grievous does not have a particularly dramatic ability, but he does have a pretty hefty stat line, like much heftier than like basically any other 6 cost leader. So I think he has potential. His leader ability seems incredibly annoying. If we see enough token generators that make these 1/1s, it's just going to like really clog up and make your opponent waste a lot of time having to interact with it. So of the 2 starter leaders, Grievous is definitely the one that I am more interested in from the get-go. All right, Anakin Skywalker is a starter card. He is a 6/6 Force Jedi Republic in heroism, aggression, costs 5, and he has coordinate. On attack, draw a card. So you need 3 units, and if you do, when he attacks, he draws a card. So this is a 6/6 for 5. So he's got like Poe Dameron stats with a worse ability, a worse on attack that also is conditional. This card's fine, I think. I'm not particularly excited by 5 costs that don't have any board impact when they come in, as well as having a very situational ability. So overall, not too hyped. 332nd Stalwart is a 1/2 for 1 in heroism. It's a Republic clone trooper with coordinate. This unit gets +1/+1. This is starter filler for the most part. It's kind of to feature this coordinate ability. I mean, even a 1 cost 2/3 is not particularly exciting. Captain Rex is another star card. It's a 6 cost 4/4 in command heroism. When played, create 2 clone troopers. So these are the clone troopers. They are 2/2s. There's going to be a lot of other cards that call out clone troopers, so we're going to see them here. And from now on, we know they are 2/2s. So this is 6 costs for 8/8 worth of stats over 3 bodies, which is okay. I mean, I think if you can capitalize on like this, like automatically turns coordinate on, right? If you have ways to kind of make use of these tokens, it does give you like plenty of action churning. The problem is this is an expensive card. 6 is a lot. This doesn't actually affect the board in any way unless you have something that gets coordinate once this comes into play and then like becomes incredibly impactful. But this is very slow, and I think overall, I think it will be too slow. All right, the villain starter cards. Battle Droid Escort is a 3-cost villainy card. It's a 1/1 Separatist Droid Trooper. When played, when defeated, create a Battle Droid token. So it's a 3-cost that is a 1/1 and makes a 1/1, and then it dies into a 1/1. Those are the battle droids. They are 1/1s. A lot of cards make battle droids. These are the things that I would be excited to throw Sentinel on with Grievous, just make your opponent waste a bunch of time. Battle Droid Escort is going to be interesting because we're going to see in a second Exploit, which is the other new mechanic. We haven't seen a card with that yet, but in a moment we will. And I think this is the kind of card, at least in theory, that is going to make Exploit more interesting. It gives you a lot of fodder. it gives you a when defeated effect. So let's see what exploit does. Oh, it's not going to be this one, but it'll be the next one. This is General's Guardian, 4-cost command villain. It's a 4/4. When this unit is attacked, create a battle droid token. So again, this is making tokens. It's a 4/4 though. I think for the most part though, it's gonna make a droid, right? Like most of the people are gonna kill this. We'll usually kill this with a unit attack. Of course, if it gets like takedowned or something, you get no friend. But other than that, you'll usually get a friend. Card seems decent, but also probably not decent enough to be very impactful and constructed. Oh man, still not the exploit card. Sorry, we'll get there in a second. 2-cost cunning villainy card, Separatist Commando. It is a 2/3 Separatist droid trooper, and it says while you control another Separatist unit, this unit gains raid 2. So unfortunately, it's not when you control another Separatist, because then the leader Separatists would do it. So 2/3 for 2, not exciting. Now 2/3 raid 2 for 2 would be exciting, but this is pretty conditional. I think probably 2 conditional, and as such, not super excited. All right, we got an exploit card. So this is Asajj Ventress. This was released a while ago because it was part of the convention promo packs. So Asajj was one, Maul is another that we'll talk about later. But this is a 4-cost villainy aggression card. It is Force Separatist Sith, so it's got the nice Force traits. Also got the Separatist trait, which you've seen called out. It is a 2/4. It has exploit 2. So exploit is cost reduction. So for everything you exploit, which means a unit you defeat on your own side, you sacrifice a unit, you reduce the cost of this card by 2. And this says exploit 2, which means you are allowed to do that twice. So you are allowed to sacrifice 2 units, and for each unit you sacrifice, defeat on your own side of the board, you will then reduce this cost by 2. So you sacrifice 1, this becomes a 2-cost 2/4, or you sacrifice 2 units and it's a free 2/4. The on attack ability is if you've attacked with another Separatist unit this phase, this gets +3/+0 for this phase. So it's a very slow effect, right? Because you need to have attacked with another thing, and then you can attack with Asajj. But if you do attack with another Separatist before you attack with Asajj, she does attack as a 5/4, which is hefty. This is interesting, of course, because it can be free. So it's really going to depend on how easy it is to just like get these battle droid tokens, right? How free they come attached to other units. Like we saw the 3-cost one that he is a 1/1, he makes a 1/1, he dies into a 1/1. So you can play him and then actually immediately play Asajj for free. He dies into a 1/1. And then she's in play. Now, is that good? No, I don't think that particular play is great. Like, the issue here I have with Asajj is I just don't think her stats are amazing, even when you cheat her out. 2/4 is not exciting. If she was an on attack +3/+0, I'd be way more excited. But the fact that something else has to also attack before she does gives your opponent tons of like leeway on how they interact with this. Do they kill the Separatist first? Do they let you attack with the Separatist and then just kill Asajj, who's a 2/4, right? She doesn't get the +3 until she attacks herself. But exploit does some other things that are interesting too, right? Because if you have things with death triggers, like we saw the one that makes a 1/1 when he dies, but other things that create death triggers, it'll be pretty interesting. This can come out, I guess, on turn 1 if you play 2 1-drops and then eat them both. I don't think you get anywhere, again, because it's a 2/4. It's barely overstated as a true 2-drop. It's not really overstated as a 2-drop. 2/4 is fine. Asajj, I mean, she has the Force trait, so if a cheap Force unit is impactful, it'll be interesting. Also will obviously depend on how easy it is to keep Separatist units out. It looks like a pretty aggressive card. Like, you get this out really early and then hit for 5. That's pretty big. So I don't think this card is bad. It's just, I think it's going to take a lot of moving pieces to make it good enough. But it might get there. It has like, there's enough synergy here that it could end up being quite powerful. And here's Darth Maul. He is a 5-cost aggression villainy unit, also Force Sith, and he is a 5/6. And his ability is this unit can attack 2 units instead of 1. So It doesn't attack them like one after the other, just attacks them together. So like even if your opponent has like 2/6/5s, for instance, I don't know why they would, but let's say they do, he can attack them both at the same time. They would all three of those units would die at the same time. This is another unit in a long line of units that are like good with Energy Conversion Lab. That's like what I call 5 drops that don't really have immediate board impact unless you ambush with them, but become extremely powerful when you ambush with them. So think things like Zeb, right? Zeb is a card actually kind of similar to this, right? He's kind of useless unless you ambush with him, but then he's like really good. Think Gideon Hask. He's a 5/5 for 5. It's not particularly good just like when you drop him, but if you ambush with him and then get an experience on something, great. There are a lot of units that fall in this camp, and like Poe. Poe is another one. That card is crazy good and still probably isn't playable unless you're using Energy Conversion Lab or cheating him out as a 4-drop with Han, right? So this still seems consistent to me that 5 cost and above, if it's not giving you immediate impact, you usually need to either like cheat it out or ambush with it with Energy Conversion Lab. Darth Maul is very good with Energy Conversion Lab, so he's going to fit in that role if you want to play red-green, I think. He's easier to, like, he like really cleans up the board. The dream here is obviously to kill like 2 units that only have 5 power combined, so you like 2-for-1 them, and then also leave behind a 5 power unit that has that force trait. Your opponent basically has to deal with that. I think this card is good enough to see constructed play because of how good it is with that Energy Conversion Lab play. Like, this is a stabilizer. This is kind of what you need, right? You need a power play usually in these decks that run Energy Conversion Lab, especially like villain decks that want to like ramp on turn 2 with resupply or super laser tech. Go to their 5-drop. They've kind of lost tempo on their ramp turn, but bam, now they got Maul. The board is deleted. They've got a 5/1 in play or something, and that's pretty good. So overall, it's not like a fancy card. It's just good with ECL, like very good with it, that I think if we're going to run like red-green villain, it'll probably see play there. All right, here's another exploit card, Hailfire Tank. It's an 8-cost 7/6 with exploit 2, right? So you can sacrifice up to 2 units, and then this card costs 2 less, so it could be a 4-cost. You know, this is generic. This is not, I don't think, the constructed plant for exploit. This is just going to be pretty good in draft, and it's here to kind of highlight what the ability is supposed to do. Here's Coruscant Guard. He is a 2-cost command unit. He's a 3/2 Republic Clone Trooper, and he has Coordinate Ambush, right? So if he's your 3rd unit, he has Ambush. 2-cost 3/2 Ambush would be decent if it was always on. It's not always on. I don't think it's going to be good enough as a 3/2 Ambush that's not always on. But, you know, the floor here is pretty high because 2-cost 3/2 is not awful. But we'll see. Like, so far, I think probably not. All right, Prisoner of War is a 4-cost cunning card. It's a tactic. It says a friendly unit captures an enemy non-leader, non-vehicle unit, so captures back. If the enemy unit costs less than the friendly unit, create 2 battle droid tokens. So, right, if you have a 3-cost unit out and you capture a 2-cost unit, bam, you also get 2 droids. So this is interesting, right? Because usually the downside of capture is they defeat the capture, and then they just get their unit back and you're sad. But here, at least, there's a potential for you to leave behind some fodder. Now, the requirement of having to capture something smaller can hurt. I think usually you're going to want to use this with leaders, and then you'll like flip a leader. You use Prisoner of War to eat a pretty big unit that's not as big as your leader. You'll get some fodder, and then go from there. You'll want probably, I think what's important here is that it's in Cunning, because Dryden Voss is in Cunning, and he is the like capture payoff that doesn't really see much play currently because the only capture card in yellow happens to be Relentless Pursuit, and it's just the capture density isn't very high in yellow. So unless you're pairing it with the other capture color, which is green, it's really hard to even think about having enough capture. And I think having more in yellow means you'll be able to branch that kind of archetype into other colors outside of just yellow, green, and potentially really power up Dryden, who is a pretty strong card, who's very situational. But I think maybe there is where I'd look. The card itself, the power level is fine, I think. All right, here's General's Blade. It is upgrade, 3 cost in command, attached to a non-vehicle unit. If attached unit is a Jedi, so it's a Jedi callout, first one, it gains on attack. The next unit you play this phase costs 2 less. Gives +3/+3, so really hefty. It's like the Jedi lightsaber, Fallen lightsaber. I got really excited for this when I first saw it for Chirrut, but unfortunately Chirrut's actually not a Jedi, it's just Force, so it doesn't really work there. But the stats on this are very hefty. I like Jedi lightsaber and Fallen lightsaber, so I think this is going to fall in a similar camp. What's nice is you can pay 3 for this, put it on a Jedi, attack. You might even be able to just like follow up with another unit, like a 2-drop, right? The next 2-drop you play will be free. If for some reason you can go into your next turn with this up and get an attack off, you can double ramp into another unit, right? So let's give the scenario where, let's go, who's a Kanan's a Jedi, or Yoda. Let's do Yoda. We played Yoda on turn 2. On turn 3, we equip it with a General's Blade and we attack. Now something costs 2 less. We actually can play another 3-drop that turn if we want, because we had 1 open. What's even more exciting is the turn after we go to our 5 resource turn. We have this Yoda with this General's Blade. If we're able to attack with it, we can play a 7-drop like Luke or something else, right? So double cheating on a unit is quite impactful. I think we're going to need to look at how many Jedis there are and how consistently we can equip this on them. But this card definitely seems like it's of the power level that can be interesting constructed. Also to note, this isn't even just for heroism, right? So if for some reason there's neutral Jedis, this can work with villain stuff as well. All right, Jesse is a 3-cost aggression heroic card. It's a 4/4 Republic clone trooper with raid 1, so it's very overstated for a 3-drop, but it says when played, an opponent creates 2 battle droid tokens. Now, battle droids aren't going to be incredibly impactful most of the time, but they will give your opponent a bunch of actions that they can churn through. And of course, if they're able to power those battle droids up or exploit them or something, you might just be like destroying yourself. This is like incredibly aggro because, I mean, of course, this is a 3-cost that attacks as 5 power, also has 4 health, so it's not easy to remove immediately. But you do give them 2 units that can do 2 damage into it, so maybe not as hard to remove as you might think. Overall, I think this is probably a little too all-in for my taste, but we'll see if this ends up being good enough in like a heavy aggro deck. All right, 7-cost Aura Singh is a 7/6 Underworld Bounty Hunter. It's in aggression, it's got Overwhelm, and it says when an enemy ground unit attacks your base, ready this unit. All right, 7 cost is huge for a card that doesn't have an immediate impact on the game. There is like, this isn't like the least immediate impact, because if they attack you, your base, you can ready this card. So it's not, acts a little bit as a deterrent there, but overall, I cannot imagine that a 7/6 that doesn't do anything when it comes into play is ever going to compete with the absurd 7-drops that we have access to in this game. All right, 6-cost Consolidation of Power. It's a plan in command villainy. It says choose any number of friendly units. You may play a unit from your hand if its cost is less than or equal to the combined power of the chosen units for free, then defeat the chosen units. So you're sacrificing your board to cheat out something massive, right? So what you'd look for with this is cards that have a lot of power relative to their cost, right? So we're actually going to see some, like a 5/2 later that costs 3. So something like that, right? That card only costs 3, but it's going to reduce the cost of whatever you play by 5 with this. So you need to amass a certain amount of stuff like that so you can pay 6 and then play like a Devastator or something, right? You need like a lot of power in play. This is just a build around. This is like a pure combo card. I think you might look like, oh, exploit and tokens are everywhere, but like tokens don't actually do much for this. They're just one. They do one. Each one of them is 1 power, and you're already paying. You have to pay so much up front for this card, which is 6, right? So you need, before you can even cheat anything out, you need to have at least 7 power in play. Once you have 7 power in play, you can play this, sacrifice 7 power, and cheat 1 resource. Any more than 7 power, obviously you can cheat even higher, but that's a lot of power to have in play. It's also a lot of power to have in play and not just want to like use that power in play. Like, you're gonna end up smushing all your units into 1 unit and then potentially get blown out by a bounce or a removal. So this looks very combo oriented. There are going to be some things that kind of play into a combo like this, but I don't think it's gonna like become some giant staple. All right, Plo Koon is a 5-cost Cunning Heroism unit. It's a 3/6 Force Jedi Republic. It has Ambush and Coordinate Raid 3. That's a lot going on. If you have 3 units, or if he is your 3rd unit, he's a 5-cost 6/6 Ambush, which is massive. Now, 5-cost 3/6 Ambush, not so exciting, but also not awful. Like, that's the thing. It's not awful as a 5-cost 3/6 Ambush. The upside here that he can like one-shot almost every leader that comes out at 5 resources other than like Boba is kind of nuts. He's got the Force trait built in. He's got Jedi. I think this card is quite good. It's going to work really well too with like Hero Boba if you want to like, if you like that deck and like that style, because then the floor here is 4/6 Ambush. The ceiling here is a 7/6 Ambush for 5. I think the card's pretty good. You're just going to look for him to be like your power card in a go wide deck. It's going to be like this existential threat that your opponent has to think about in the mid game when they're like worried that you have something that's going to come down and 6-hit anything they have. All right, the first legendary preview, unless of course Asajj or Maul are legendaries, but we do not know that yet. Gore is a 12-cost command card, so just command. Anyone can have Grievous as pet if they want it. He's a Separatist creature. He's a 7/7 with a whole bunch of keywords. He's got Exploit 3, Sentinel, Ambush, Overwhelm. So Exploit 3 means up to 3 units, so we can get this down to 6 cost if we remove 3 units of our own to do it. Obviously, 6 cost Sentinel, Ambush, Overwhelm would be good, quite good, right? That's bigger Maul with Sentinel for 1 less. So that's kind of like what I want to look at our upside here and compare it to that. That would be incredible, right? Bigger Maul with Sentinel is good. Of course, you had to sacrifice 3 units to do that. I think this could be good. Obviously we saw there's a 3-cost unit that makes 2 1/1s, and when it dies, it makes a 1/1. And this whole thing with exploit is, how much does your opponent want to waste time dealing with your junk? They're like gonna have to attack with real units into these 1/1s if they want to turn off cards like Gore, right? They're like, oh, you have 3 battle droids, and I've got a 4/7 Boba and whatever. Like, if I don't kill a droid, you can Gore me on 6 resources. So do I have to spend an entire attack on one of your 1/1s? And cards like this, like Gore, are important in making your opponent have to make difficult decisions, because that's kind of the whole deal of exploit. You have bad units and your opponent has to decide if they're like gonna waste time with them or suffer the consequences of this monstrosity. And I think Gore's solid, right? I don't think this is gonna like define anything, because of course it is still just a guy. It's just like one guy that comes in and does something cool, and we've seen that on a lot of units, right? Like, obviously we haven't seen it at 6 cost, but at 7 cost we get this stuff all the time, right? So there's a big difference for it to come out a little earlier if you're able to set that up, but I don't think it's gonna like be slam dunk. This is destroying everything. Also keep in mind, of course, that you can't play it for 8 resources too, right? You sacrifice 2 units. Now 8 resources, Sentinel, Ambush, Overwhelm in a vacuum might not be as exciting, but in certain situations will also be good enough. All right, Next up is Shock T. This is a 4-cost command heroism unit. It has a Force Jedi Republic, so we're seeing that those traits on a lot of things. She is a 3/4. She says each friendly token unit gets +1/+0. So we've got a little anthem, right? She is buffing all our tokens. On attack, create a clone trooper token. So I want to look at this. We have something to compare this to, right? We have like General Dodonna, who's also a 4-cost. He buffs all our rebels, right? So, but he also gives them toughness, health, sorry, +1/+1. This I don't think is quite good enough, just because it's the stat line of 3/4 for 4 is pretty mediocre. The effect on it, I mean, it really is going to depend on if we're able to get like a couple tokens out before she comes into play. Like if we have a 2-drop and a 3-drop that make tokens, and then she comes in, if your opponent can't like immediately remove her, then it becomes really interesting, of course. But that's the same thing that happens with like Dodonna right now, right? You go Rebel 1, Rebel 2, you play Dodonna, your opponent can't remove Dodonna, they're in trouble. But like, Dodonna's not even like played right now very often in the full Rebel deck. So is this going to be good enough? Is it going to get carried by the fact that you can then attack and create a clone trooper? I mean, certainly if she ever gets to attack, that's huge. She is a decent ambusher, right? Like if you're able to play this with ambush and kill like a 2-drop and then get your clone immediately, I don't hate that. I don't think this card is bad. I'm going to start a little skeptical, just because, of course, it doesn't give health to the tokens, and because she only has 3 power, which is a little limiting. Alrighty, so we are up to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, this is the first card being previewed in the official preview week in the start of September. So everything up until here was kind of like the slow teasers and the starter stuff. So we got first new leader that isn't a starter leader. He's got an action, heal 1 damage from a unit, and he deploys at 6, and he's a 4/7 Sentinel. He's also Force Jedi Republic, like a lot of these units are. And he has an on attack, heal 1 damage from a unit if you do deal 1 damage to a different unit. So his front ability, I think, looks pretty weak to me. I think there are going to be some units that come into play with some damage on them. We're about to see a couple. But overall, I think that ability is pretty low impact. It can change some combat math a little bit, so it's not a dud, but it is kind of action intensive, and it is not incredibly impactful. As far as a 6-cost deploy, he does have an immediate impact. He is a Sentinel. 4/7 is a good stat line. There are some other 4/7 leaders at that cost, notably like Luke, who is also a blue hero. But Sentinel is immediately doing something. He's a good enough stat line for Sentinel to matter. His on attack is kind of iffy, just because it requires a little bit of setup, right? If he's going to be healing himself, he's going to need to have gotten damaged before he attacks. I think most opponents are not going to just be poking him with damage so that you can heal it off and deal 1 damage to something else. So likely you would want some other damaged units in play. So if we see enough synergy there where you get upside from units coming into play with damage, and then you can heal them with his leader ability or his unit side. Once again, I think at 6 cost, I'm not sure this is good enough. I'm still not seeing this stat line or this effect being like so much better than 5-cost leaders stat lines and effects to warrant that extra cost. We're gonna see if that. Like, this hinges entirely on like how good is 4/7 Sentinel on 6 deploy. If that's good enough, then obviously I think the leader will be pretty good, because that is a hefty thing to get through. Chewbacca, for instance, who's another Sentinel deploy leader, he costs 1 more. He's also a 2/9, which in some ways is better, but in some ways also worse. He's sometimes much easier to remove. He's also coming out a turn later. So Obi-Wan is not bad. It's just I'm still skeptical on the 6-cost deploy area, and I think it might have needed a little more something like General Grievous' stat line to be more exciting. All right, next up, we've got Hello There. It is a trick. So in blue, in Vigilance Heroism, so far no trick synergy in heroes. I think Jabba is the only trick synergy card in the game so far, but we'll keep an eye out. It says choose a unit that entered play this phase. It gets -4/-4 for this phase. So -4/-4 for 3 is pretty impactful. You can compare it a little bit to Open Fire because they both kind of do 4 damage, but -4/-4 removing attack also means that if you're going to try to create trade-ups, like for instance, there's leaders who are like 4/7s, right? This can shrink it into an 0/3 and then you can finish it off. Open Fire is less good at doing things like that. This also gets through shields very cleanly, so that's very helpful. It gets through things like TIE Phantom, things that can't take damage. Of course, the big catch here is that you can only play it on a unit that entered play this phase. Now, the leader change that the leader rule that they changed with set 2 is that leaders do enter play the turn they are deployed. So this can hit leaders, and I think that's going to be its main use. It's going to be a little awkward sometimes to have to like hold up resources just in case your opponent is going to play something that you want to defeat. I think that is a pretty big downside for this card, that clause. There's a lot of things to like about this card, and I think it being a leader killer is going to be one of them, but I think there's also some things to be skeptical about with that conditional issue. I think I'm not a huge fan of my removal being so conditional, right? This is not a very good top deck. If you needed it last turn when they played the thing, and you can't answer that thing with this anymore, that's a problem. All right, next is Obi-Wan's Ether Spite. It is a 5-cost Vigilance Heroism space unit. It is a 4/6 with Jedi, Republic, Vehicle Fighter. We'll see how much most of those traits matter. Has a when played and on attack, you may deal 1 damage to this unit and deal 2 damage to another space unit. So if this comes into play and kills another space unit, that's pretty good, right? It would do 1 to itself, so it would be a 4/5 for 5, but it would kill like a 3/2 mostly. That's what we're looking at. I think overall, I'm not too hyped about this just because I don't think 2 damage is generally going to be enough to kill space units that you want to kill with this. And then you're just left with a little bit of a clunky space unit. Now, the stats aren't bad. I think, for instance, in like a Han 2, like young Han deck, this coming down a turn earlier is actually going to be much more impactful because it's more likely that there's going to be cheap space units around for it to destroy. And then that's also when a stat line like a 4/4 or a 4/3 is going to be more impactful. It's decent there, I think. The synergy here where it like deals 1 damage to itself and then Han heals it, like I don't know how relevant that is. Like this was a 4/5 or a 4/6 when it comes into play. I don't know if that's gonna change math too significantly. So again, most important is how useful is that 2 damage to another space unit. I think right now it doesn't look like that's going to be crazy useful because most space units don't have 2 health. All right, Royal Guard Attaché is a 2-cost blue unit. It's a 2/3 Naboo Trooper. It says when played, it's a 2/5, sorry, Naboo Trooper. It says when played, deal 2 damage to this unit. So it comes in as a 2/3. Obviously, this is like a Obi-Wan card specifically for draft. I don't think this card is intended for constructed, really. I think even if you heal a damage off of it, the turn it comes into play, and it's a 2/4. It's not particularly good. All right, a new base. So we are going to get a cycle of rare bases in this set. We got the first one. It is the Cunning one, Petranaki Arena. It's 26 health, which is an interesting number, right? It says each leader unit you control gets +1/+0. Now it says each leader unit you control because that's a call out a little bit to Twin Suns. It is a format where you can have multiple leaders out, but in regular constructed, I think this card is actually pretty interesting. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be very down on this. I think in general, opinions have swayed a lot towards 30 health bases being better in most cases. I still am pretty not convinced about that. I like the 25 health bases quite a lot in a lot of different situations. Now we've got a 26 health base. Now this is a static ability. It's not requiring an action. 3 of the 4 bases in Set 1 all required an action. Energy Conversion Lab's the only one that kind of cheated in action. So what's interesting about this to me is not like, oh, my leader now hits for 1 or 2 more damage to my opponent's base. This is turbo good for aggro and bad for everyone else, or probably not even good for aggro. I'm looking at this as a card that creates new breakpoints for your leaders. Anytime your leader now needs 1 more damage to do an efficient trade, this all of a sudden can be, you can think of it as like a removal, right? And if your leader survives and then now he's also bigger for another attack, that's great, right? So for leaders that are trying to be actually board controlling, having +1 attack and letting them defeat units that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to defeat is very big. Conversely, for aggressive leaders who get removed quite easily by opponents' units, now they might be able to trade with those units instead of just downright dying, right? I have one example of this right now just to like get my thought across. Kylo playing with yellow. He often on turn 3 you're going to deploy him. He's going to be a 5/4 because your hand's going to be empty. The next turn you're going to draw 2 cards. He's going to go down to like a 3/4 or a 4/4 if you resource, right? And then your opponent bosks him or something, right? 4/5 ambush, kills him. The boss survives. Patronaki Arena will make it so that boss doesn't survive. And that could be the difference in a game, potentially. So don't just tunnel vision to like, hey, this is like +1 damage to my opponent's base because I'm going to attack once with my leader and then my leader's going to die. This is going to be a relevant card if the breakpoint it provides on the leaders is good. There's a few leaders I want to highlight too that could get even more use of this. Iden Versio is one of them because she comes in shielded, so she would be a 5/4 shielded. That is pretty huge in my opinion. Another one is Jabba. Like Jabba's a useless body as a 2/12, but a 3/12 is all of a sudden not so useless. So again, there's some stuff to like here. Obviously, it's costing you 4 health. So if this is not helping you into aggro matchups, that 4 health could matter, but it might actually help you into aggro matchups if your leader can come out and then kill something that it otherwise wouldn't have, right? Like Iden killing a Sabine, right? Or a Poe. Sorry, not a Poe. Yeah, Sabine, right? She can hit for 5 now. So that's 2 turns late, maybe. It might not be the best example, but it's the first one that came to my head. I just want to emphasize breakpoints. If it creates important ones in the game, I think this card could very much see play. Don't underrate this. Really look at the meta as it evolves. All right, next is Republic Commando. It's a 3-cost heroism unit, 2/5 with Coordinate Saboteur. This is not a good card. I don't really have much to say about it. It's not good stats. The coordinate ability isn't not even buffing it very much. All right, next is a 3-cost blue unit, Infantry of the 212th. It's a 2/4 with Coordinate Sentinel. This is also not a good card. 2/4 for 3 is bad. Even if it had Sentinel without the Coordinate, it still probably wouldn't be good enough because that card exists already. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a Republic Clone Trooper. If like mono troopers, mono clones is an all-star deck, I still don't think this would be good there. Like, I still can't imagine this being what you want to do at 3 cost. All right, next is Kraken. It's a 5-cost villainy command unit. He is a 2/5 separatist droid. He says when played, create 2 battle droid tokens. And it says on attack, give each friendly token unit +1/+1 for this phase. So this is another one of those like go wide exploit card. This is 3 units for the price of 1 card. Now, overall, the stats you're getting here are 4/7 for 5 over 3 bodies. It's not very good in that sense because the bodies are all weak. It's very action intensive, so not very economical in terms of maintaining initiative and like addressing issues early, right? You need to kill something that has 3 health. Yeah, this can do it, just takes 2 actions. That's problematic, right? A 4/7 would have done it in 1 action. But the on attack's cool. This is giving you a little bit of a payoff for like not exploiting the units, right? So your opponent's now maybe in a little bit of a situation where they have to decide if they're gonna kill this, but then leave more units in play just so you can't buff them, or if they're gonna like go for the little guys but then keep the big guy in play. Now he's not particularly threatening. I think 5 cost is probably a little too much for a unit like this. Of course, we have to see how much exploit payoff. We saw Gore, for instance, right? How many of cards like that are going to exist? Because it looks to me like this exploit stuff is going to be very dependent on how good these payoffs are and if they're worth playing kind of behind tempo to set up enough units to threaten your opponent with those big things or big effects. All right, next is Separatist Super Tank. It's a 9-cost villain command unit. It's an 8/8 with exploit 3. So this could go down to a 3-cost. So 3-cost 8/8 is obviously very good. You have to sacrifice a bunch of your little guys to do it. This is not the one that's going to excite me, right? Like Gore excites me. This looks to me more like a draft payoff for exploit. It's not a bad one, but very much doubt it's going to be good enough for constructed. All right, next is Batch Brothers. This is a heroism aggression unit that costs 3. It's a 2/1 Republic clone trooper that says when played, create a clone trooper token. So it makes a 2/2. So you got a 2/2 and a 2/1 for 3. Stats wise, that's 4/3. That's not that impressive on a 3-cost unit. Both units are weak, so they can both get like traded down, right? Like a 2/3 kills both of these units, something that a 4/3 doesn't suffer from. So that's an issue, right? So where are we looking for something like this is with things that synergize with going wide, things that synergize with like buffing Republic or clones, right? Because you're getting multiple units to buff in that sense. Exploit is not really a heroism mechanic, so I wouldn't look at that kind of synergy there. I would be looking more on this is a pretty good coordinate unit, right? It helps turn on coordinate more consistently, and it's creating 2 Republic clones. It still seems a little low on the power level, but might be underrating all this like token generating stuff. This is really a wait and see approach. I kind of can't determine this stuff without seeing all the payoffs that we're getting, right? But this is an enabler. All right, next is Low Altitude Gunship. It is a 6-cost aggression heroism vehicle. It is a 6/5 ground unit. It has Overwhelm, and it has when played, choose an enemy unit, deal 1 damage to it for each friendly Republic unit. So that's actually a pretty good payoff, right? If you, for instance, have 3 Republic, right? And it counts itself, let's not forget that. So 2 others. We played that Batch Brother, right? So bam. This coming in, dealing 3 to something, that all of a sudden is decent. I think this is a draft bomb, first of all. Like, even if this only does 1 or 2 damage, this is going to be very, very good in draft. But there is a little potential here, depending on how easy it is to assemble enough Republic units. I think it's going to matter if your leader is Republic, because that's going to give you a pretty safe extra +1 here. The stats are decent. They're not like super exciting at 6 cost. I really would have liked that 6 health, but we didn't get it. But Overwhelm's nice. The card's pretty good, and it has some potential. All right, R2-D2. We got another R2-D2 in the game. It's a 2-cost cunning heroism unit it's a Republic droid. It's a 2/4. So it's a 2-cost 2/4, which is a little bit of a power creep there. That is a lot of stats for a 2-drop. It has a when played, you may discard a card from your hand. If you do, search the top 3 cards of your deck for a card and draw it. So that's a very powerful effect. It's card selection, right? It's not card advantage, but it's card selection. Now, note, you have to discard the card before you look at the top 3, so there is a chance that your hand gets worse after this, although that is going to be very unlikely. I think you're going to you're almost always going to use this effect, and it's going to be powerful. I think late in the game, it's going to have a lot of upside too, because unlike something like Inferno 4, which just looks at the top 2 and reorders, and we know that card is pretty good. That card sees a lot of play. R2 lets you put the card immediately into your hand. So late in the game, we're grinding, we're playing a lot of things, and you top deck an R2. Well, that's way better than top decking an Inferno 4, because you can play the R2 and then look for a card to like put in your hand that is really impactful. Like, you have 10 resources, you can look for your 7 or 8 drop after you do that and immediately play it. You don't have to wait a whole turn. This is also being carried a little bit by the fact that its stats are just pretty good for a 2-cost unit. Now, 2/4, look, most good 2-drops these days, I mean, there aren't very many of them, but there's like 3/3s. There's like Sabine, who's a 2/3 with upside. Sometimes people play 3/2s. Overall, the 2-drop slot isn't like crazy good, but 2/4 is also not crazy good, but it is better than most 2-drop stat lines. Like, you're getting 6 points for 2, which is not common, right? You've got Battlefield Marine, that does it. Val does it, for instance, but she has like the upside downside bounty thing. Overall, I think R2 is going to see quite a lot of play. Republic on it is also going to be relevant. I'm seeing Republic callouts. I expect to see more as well. All right, Creative Thinking is a 2-cost cunning heroism event. It's also a trick. It says exhaust a non-unique unit, create a clone trooper token. So 2 cost, you're getting a 2/2, and you're also exhausting something. So there are other effects like this that exist, like Asteroid Sanctuary. So that's exhausting something, but instead of getting a trooper, you're getting a shield. There's Bamboozle, which the upside there is that it's free sometimes. There's a few others. I think the biggest issue here is that it's not letting you exhaust unique units. I don't think this is going to be playable at all because of that. Most good units in this game, including leaders, are unique. I think it's going to be very, very awkward a lot of the time. All right, next we've got Echo. It's a 2-cost command heroism unit. It's a 2/2 Republic clone trooper with coordinate. This unit gets +2/+2. So first off, Echo is another copy of the card Echo from set 2, who notably, if you discard a card with the same name as him or another unit, you can put 2 experience tokens on a unit with that name, right? So R2 actually also works there now. This was, I think, we're also looking at stuff like Hunter, the leader, right? So the more times we have units that have the same name as another version of that card, Hunter is going to get a little better as a leader. That Echo card is going to get a little better. Marauder, the space unit, is going to get a little better. So this is kind of relevant in that sense, just before we even look at it independently of all that like name synergy. I just wanted to like make sure you keep in mind that we're starting to see duplicate names of more cards, and that's something to look at for Hunter, like I said, and those other cards. But as a standalone card, this is actually a really good coordinate payoff because a 2-cost 4/4 is really powerful. But this is not a 2-drop, right? This is not something you want to play on turn 1, which makes it sometimes awkward, right? Because you don't love jamming a bunch of 2-drops in a deck, and then you just get like flooded with low impact units. So if this takes the spot of a regular 2-drop, but then you're like forced to play it on turn 1, you're not happy. So it's a good effect. I think if this is reliably a 2-cost 4/4, that's good, but remember your opponent can turn that off by killing another unit first. Then this guy loses his coordinate, etc., etc. The exciting part to me actually is that he is named Echo. I think the Echo card from set 2 is actually pretty strong. If it was more reliably turned on, it's just like very hard for it to trigger. But we're going to look to see if playing both Echoes might make that more reliable. All right, here's Republic Tactical Officer. It's a 2-cost command heroism unit. It's a 1/4 Republic clone. It says when played, you may attack with a Republic unit. It gets +2/+0 for this attack. So this is Fleet Lieutenant for Republics instead of Rebels. It costs less than Fleet Lieutenant, but obviously the stats are 1/4. It's not a 3/3. But I think this card is pretty good. I think this +2/+0 when played effect is powerful. It looks like Republic is going to be supported enough. Look at R2, for instance. Now, him being a 2-cost means that he's not always the best follow-up into a turn 1 play, because then you don't have often won't have anything to do with that third resources. But think Rey maybe, right? I think this would be an amazing card to play turn 2 with Rey, where you go turn 1 R2, turn 2 Republic Tactical, R2 attacks as a 4-power unit, and then bam, you throw an experience on this guy, you turn him into a 2/5, he's all of a sudden relevant. So like as a turn 2 play, I'd look at leaders that might be able to capitalize on that leftover resource. But later in the game, this will also be useful. I think that the effect is quite good. So as long as we get enough Republic support, I think this guy can be quite decent. All right, Kashyyyk Defender is a 2-cost Vigilance Heroism unit. It's a Wookiee. It's a 0/5 with grit. It says when played, heal up to 2 damage from another unit and deal that much damage to this unit. So if you don't have another damaged unit, this is just the 2-cost 0/5. That's bad. If you do have another damage unit, you can heal 2 damage from it, like that Royal Guard Attaché, for instance. But then you get a 2/3 for 2, which is still bad. I get the synergy here. I get what we're trying to do, especially with like Obi-Wan. I get what this guy's trying to do, where you like heal something and then cool, you gritted a little bit. But like the stats here are so bad that even when you pull it all off, you're still just left with a 2/3 for 2. I don't think this card is very good personally. But it is a Wookiee, so if we get like Wookiee tribal stuff going, there's like the one that draws a card, for instance. This will get a little bit of a power boost there. All right, Knight of the Republic is a 6-cost Heroism Vigilance unit. It's a 4/7 with Force Jedi Republic. It says when this unit is attacked, create a Clone Trooper token. You know, that's a decent ability. It's gonna trip. Like if your opponent wants to kill this with a unit, it's likely going to leave behind a clone. Well, it's going to leave behind at least 1 Clone Trooper because it's got 7 health. The problem here is that it is a 6 cost that does nothing when it enters play, I just can't justify playing a card like that. It's just way too slow in my opinion. All right, next is Pelta Supply Frigate. It's a 5-cost command heroism space unit. It is a 3/6 Republic vehicle capital ship and has coordinate when played. So coordinate when played. So you have to have 2 other units in play when you play this for this to happen, because it's a one-shot deal. It's not all of a sudden gonna get turned on later. Let's just create a Clone Trooper. So 5-cost 3/6 space unit, not good. 5-cost 3/6 space unit that makes a 2/2, much better. Still, in my opinion, probably not good enough though. So I think even if coordinate decks exist and we reliably get that off, I still don't think this card is going to make the cut. All right, here's a cool one. On Natural Life, it's a 3-cost Villainy Cunning event. It's a Force event, but it doesn't actually call out Force at all, so don't know how relevant that's going to be. It says play a unit that was defeated this phase from your discard pile. It costs 2 less. It enters play ready. At the start of the regroup phase, defeat it. So this is in a long line of these like cunning, cheating events or effects that then defeat or bounce the unit, right? Think Sneak Attack, think Triple Dark Raid, think the Bounty, Unrefusable Offer, I believe. It's like a temporary thing that happens. It's interesting, right? Whereas a lot of the other stuff you can like guarantee they'll go off, like Sneak Attack, like you just have to have the card in your hand, or Triple Dark Raid, you get to search the 7. Here you're kind of relying on either your opponent doing something to one of your units or you being able to trade off that unit. I think that's going to be interesting sometimes, but I mostly think this is going to end up being awkward a lot of the time. Like it reads to me like it's something you want to be very aggressive with, because of course the unit's dying at the end of the turn, but you're also going to be very reliant on what your opponent does. Like it would be great to play like a Ruthless Raider, and next turn your opponent kills your Ruthless Raider, and then you play this and you bring back your Ruthless Raider. Right, this cheats it out for 2 less, so you get, that's a 4 resource play. Then that Ruthless Raider does the whole Sneak Attack show. There is definitely a high upside here with an effect like this, but it is an incredibly situational effect. It unfortunately does not combo with Sneak Attack. Sneak Attack defeats it at the end of the turn, so you can't like Sneak Attack something, it dies, and then Unnatural Life it. That would have been real fun to do. But overall, really high ceiling, very low floor in an effect like this. I'll have to see just how awkward it ends up being in play. All right, sorry for the weird scan here. I didn't get a nicer one, but this is Aid from the Innocent. It's a 5-cost Cunning Heroism event. It's a gambit. It says search the top 10 cards of your deck for 2 Heroism non-unit cards and discard them. And then for this phase, you may play the discarded cards, and they each cost 2 less. So this is kind of like a draw 2 from your top 10. And then you're not actually cheating resources. You're actually down a resource on this because they both cost 2 less, but you paid 5 for this. So it's like you're paying a +1 tax overall, but what you're getting is 2 cards. Now they're non-units, so we have to look at events and upgrades that you might want to do here. Ideally, they're pretty cheap, right? Because you're already paying 5 for this. So if you're getting like 5 drops, you're going to need to pay another 3 for each of them, right? So that would be like 11 resources. So look at like 2 cost and 3 cost stuff, then you might be able to like just play the card for free and then maybe pay 1 more for the other card. I think it'd be nice to like find a couple upgrades with this and immediately throw them on like a leader. I think like 2 lightsabers or something. That would be pretty cool. It's very action intensive, right? You have to play this. That doesn't do anything. Then you do have to play each card individually. So your opponent does get time to react to all that. Now, searching 10 is great. That is a ton of selection. The problem is non-unit. I think that's a pretty big problem. And what's really is the goal here, I think, is to kind of like gear up a leader with like a double upgrade turn. You like flip a leader on 5. You do this. You find a 3-cost lightsaber and like a 2-cost lightsaber, maybe, or 2 2-cost lightsabers or something, 2 upgrades, slam it, and move on from there. I'm kind of lukewarm on this one. Not yet seeing like major upside. All right, the next new leader we've got is Maul. This is a villainy aggression. He has an action attack with a unit. It gains overwhelm for this attack. So he's trying to punch you in the face. He's not really doing anything other than potentially giving you some splash damage, right? So it's not buffing anything. The leader itself deploys at 6. He is a 6/6 force underworld with overwhelm, and says each other friendly unit gains overwhelm. So 6 power is humongous. That is really big. 6 health. Not so happy to see that on a 6-cost deploy. Everything about this screams hard aggro. Like his leader's side is just pure trying to push damage, right? You got overwhelmed, so you're trying to just like ram through units, get some chip damage that way, and then he comes into play and you're just trying to like jam through stuff, and hopefully like you get another big unit out and it bashes in and it splashes damage, and like Maul probably doesn't live very long because he only has 6 health. 6 is a lot. Like it's hard for me to like neglect that. 6 power is a ton for a leader. I still hesitate a little on 6-cost deploy. I'm going to keep saying that until I see something that really changes my mind. His 6 health is going to make it a liability in a lot of situations because he's going to be at risk with all these other 6 health, 6-cost deploy leaders of where you flip him and he instantly dies and does nothing. His leader side is also, I think, very weak. Like I don't think attack with a unit it gains overwhelm is particularly exciting, but we are also expecting to see villain push more into the aggro archetype than it has in the first set, so that overwhelm might be better than I'm giving it credit for. All right, next is Savage Oppress. This is a 7-cost villainy aggression unit, Force Knight Underworld, 7/7. It's big. Says, when played, if you control fewer units, including this one, than an opponent, ready this unit. So if your opponent has 1 and you play this, he does not come in ready. They have to be +1 on you once this comes into play. Obviously, a 7/7 for 7 that's ready is much more exciting than when it's not ready. I'd argue it's basically unplayable if this was not ready. Decent when it is coming into play ready, although it still just competes in that long line of 7 drops that are just better, right? You have the Maul, Vader, Dooku's. If you look at like neutral, you got Fennec, Shan, you got Han and Luke in heroism. I'm sure there's a few more. Like the barrier there is pretty high for a unit that potentially is just coming into play and doing nothing. Now, obviously, you see the synergy here with Maul. It's not like mega synergy, but like a 7/7 overwhelm that comes into play ready sounds exciting, but this effect to trigger it, we're really going to be need to be living in a world where there's just a lot of like stuff running around, especially like droids and clones. I'm not saying there's no potential here. I'm just a little skeptical that a conditional 7/7 is good enough when that slot, that 7-cost slot has been really one of the most powerful unit slots in the game thus far. All right, next is B1 attack platform. It's a 3-cost villainy aggression ground unit. It's a 5/2. Has no text. It's a separatist droid trooper. So 5 is a ton on a 3-drop. 2 is a tiny bit on the 3-drop. Like this is pure aggression, right? This is going to die to everything. But if this can get an attack in. That's a pretty big deal. 5 is a lot. I don't think this is going to be a constructed card, but 5 is a lot, so we'll see. All right, next is a Kiadi Mundi. It's a 5 cost vigilance unit ground, so he is not heroism. Keep that in mind. He is a Force Jedi Republic. So right, I mentioned earlier, what if Jedi's like for the saber Jedi's exist in neutral? Well, here is one. He is a 5/7. He is a legendary, and he has coordinate. When an opponent plays their second card each phase, you may draw 2 cards. All right, let's look at the coordinate stuff first. So this is 2 conditions. First, you have to have 3 units in play. Second, your opponent has to play their second card, and then you draw 2. I think you mostly want to treat this as flavor text. Honestly, I do not think this is going to be triggering very much. So let's look at the rest. 5/7 for 5 is a lot of stats, and it's Force Jedi. So we had a similar stat line in Rey as a 4/7 for 5 that was a Force unit. She had the ability to heal stuff when she attacked. This has, I'd say, a less impactful ability. I just have a hard time seeing a deck that's going to be paying 5 for a big chunky unit, also being the coordinate deck and having that be turned on enough. It is a Force relevant. I think with young Han, this coming down as a 4 cost 5/5. That's similar to like what Han does with something like Poe right now, where he cheats out what is normally an expensive slow unit and makes it come out on turn 3 and makes it much more relevant. But this to me is not that exciting. It still just looks like a chunky beater that like a lot of decks are just going to be able to handle no problem. I think the effect is incredibly situational. If we are looking to just build up that force density through the curve, especially in something like young Han, I think there's a chance that this can see some splash play, but I don't think this is some like mega splashy legendary. I don't think this is going to be some game changer. All right, next is Manufactured Soldiers. It's a 3 cost double command, so it's our first double aspect card we've seen. It's a supply. It says choose one, create 2 clone trooper tokens, or create 3 battle droid tokens. So you're getting tokens. 2 clones is a better value than 3 battle droids for the cost of 3, but 3 battle droids is better if what you're trying to do is synergize a bunch with exploit. You can do this and go into a turn 3 where you've just got a bunch of units out. So it seems pretty decent. I think we're seeing a little bit of what double command has, like they've planted some cards in the first 2 sets for double command that have seen 0 play. Think General Krell, for instance. Think Attack Pattern Delta. I think it's called Enforced Loyalty, but not 100% sure. It's the double command card that says you can defeat your own units to draw a card for each unit you defeat. So there's a lot of this stuff that was just like, why does this exist? And I'm starting to see why it might exist. This seems to be a very synergy-driven card, and it's being built into a command-style deck that has not really existed yet. And it might be interesting to see, especially if we find a leader that might run that better than the leaders that currently exist. Okay, so next one is Confederate Tri-Fighter. This is a 3 cost villainy aggression space unit with Separatist droid vehicle fighter. It's a 3/3. It says bases can't be healed. So that effect kind of exists on a card right now. It's Wolf. I think this is a better version of that effect. Now, of course, this is tied to aggression, which has not yet been like usually the de facto aggro deck. There are some aggro aggression decks like Kylo, but I think we're going to get even more stuff to build aggro aggression decks. I don't dislike this card. I think having a 3/3 in space is a relevant unit on its own, way more relevant than something like Wolf has been. And then this effect is just static, which means your opponent needs to defeat this before they can heal, right? Wolf, the issue was they could like kill it and heal at the same time. They could even like vigilance it and heal 5, right? Because Wolf had to attack first. This doesn't suffer from that issue. the stats are way more impressive, especially because they're in space. So I think this card is decent and would certainly be a consideration in some aggro villain decks. All right, next is the Invasion of Christophsis. Sorry. It is a 15 cost vigilance card with separatist plan traits. It has exploit 4, so you can defeat up to 4 of your own units, making this all the way down to a 7 cost in that case. And what does it do? Choose an opponent, defeat each unit that player controls. So it's like a one-sided board wipe. Of course, it's not actually one-sided because you have to defeat 4 of your own units to do that. So let's just call it a board wipe. This is a legendary. This is interesting. Like I am interested in this card purely because this has resource cheating into it and it is a board wipe. I think first questions are always like, well, why not just play Super Laser Blast? It costs 1 more and you just get the effect. Well, think of all the times that you wish you could play Super Laser Blast for 7. That's why. Because a whole turn off of your board wipe is incredibly meaningful. So if you can make this a 7 cost reliably, that is huge. Also, this is not tied to villain, so you can look at this in heroism. Of course, the exploit mechanic is much more tied into villainy because that's like the droids are being given to you at a much cheaper cost than the clones. So it's more likely you'll be able to do something like that. It's also going to be interesting if we see cards that have when defeated effects that maybe make more units so that you pay for them with the exploit. And then you choose an opponent, you feed all their stuff, and then the things you sacrifice just popped into new units or something. This is interesting. Do not dismiss this. It might not be good. Like this is very dependent on a ton of stuff to go right for it. But do not dismiss a card with resource cheating built into it that board wipes your opponent. You got to think about this card in deck construction. You're going to have to see if you're able to reliably make this work. It's going to be horrifying for your opponent to be like, well, they got all these droids out. Do I kill these droids with my units or do I ignore them? You got the threat of invasion here. You've got maybe the threat of gore, like which is it? Which is coming? There might be other exploit stuff that feature different effects that your opponent's going to be really concerned with. Yeah, so this is an interesting card. It's certainly going to be something to play around with and figure out if it's actually worth the investment. But there is a chance it is, and there is a chance that this is incredibly impactful. All right, that's it. No, this was a long one, but that's wave 1. I think the future waves of these spoiler reviews will be shorter just because I'm going to try to get them out either weekly or bi-weekly, depending on how many cards get featured in every week. And this just had a lot of back-loaded cards. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, let me know what you think of the cards. And until next time, take care.